What's up, Notjust developers? Welcome back to a new live stream. Today, we're going to continue the Trello clone that we started in the previous episode. And the focus of today is going to be to improve what we already have with a focus on adding some pretty nice animations. Actually, we're going to focus a lot on implementing a drag and drop feature to be able to take these cards, drag them and switch places with other ones, maybe even add like multiple columns so that we can drag and drop from different columns. So yeah, that's going to take us a lot of time because we're gonna have to work with Reanimated Gesture Handler and implement everything ourselves. So anyway, it's going to be a fun tutorial. If you haven't watched the previous video, in the description of this one, you'll find the link to the previous video, and also you can open the project page on our website. And from here, you can take the source code so that you download and we start all together. Just a quick update, this Trello clone is built as a local first application using Realm. So we are using Realm as a local database to store these items here, to add, remove, and so on. And we're also synchronizing it with Atlas app services. We are synchronizing it in cloud so that if you're logging in with the same account from a different device, you can work on the same data and everything is going to be nicely synchronized. If you don't have internet, everything is going to be stored locally, and as soon as you have internet, it's going to be synchronized with a cloud. We also implemented a possibility to authenticate, because by default you are authenticated as a guest user, but if you want to keep track of your data and maybe connect from another device to the same account, you can easily do that by simply logging in. And then we should see the tasks that we previously had here. I can delete them. And if I log out, I go back to, if I go here and do sign out, I go back to my guest account. So that's what we have to work with. And yeah, today, as I said, we're going to implement some additional features, such as search and filtering if we're going to have time, but we're going to look at how we can update schema, the schema of our data, whenever we have some changes. And we're going to focus a lot on the drag and drop features. So if you're ready, let's get started. Hello guys. Hello Mirk, Rogelio, Bolik. How are you doing, guys? So as we have a lot of work today, let's jump into starting and the implementation. So yeah, if you want to get started from the same point, go ahead and clone the Trello clone from GitHub, link in the description below. And after that, open it in your Visual Studio Code. Go ahead, I'm gonna actually stop the server. Go ahead and do npm install to install the dependencies. After that, go ahead and do npm run iOS. This will build the native side iOS project and we'll install it on our device here. So shortly, we should see it running and opening in not in Expo Go, in a separate binary in a custom development build Trello, because we are using some custom native code. So here we should have application. In your case, you should also go into the source provider's realm and here update the app ID to your application ID to connect to your Atlas app services project that you created. That's it. So, in the previous episode, we have defined the model, the realm object for a specific task. After we enable synchronization, this model was synchronized with the cloud and it generated this schema for us with all the fields. Now, I think the first step is going to be to see how we can update this schema. So if we go ahead into the Atlas device SDK documentation, let's check a little bit the documentation because yeah, it probably needs a little bit more context there. So let's go to the documentation, let's select React Native, and here if we go into the model data, we can go to the page change an object model. So here on this page, it's talking about migrations, it's talking about setting the schema version, but the thing is that this is only when we are running a local only Realm database, if your application is only running locally. In our case, we have a synchronized Realm database, which synchronizes with our App Services cloud. And in that case, most of this documentation from here is not going to be helpful, because whatever you're going to try to do, like setting the schema, is going to say that it's not supported when you are synchronizing it with a cloud. So if you scroll to the top here, at the top there is a note, modify schema properties of a synced realm. So let's open this up in a new tab, and this is where you'll find more documentation and information about how we can do these changes to a realm schema when we are synchronizing with a cloud. So go ahead and pause the video, maybe read more if you are using Realm in your application and you're interested to learn and understand it better, because it explains pretty well about the breaking changes, the non-breaking changes. The long story short is there are changes that are safe to be applied. These are non-breaking changes. For example, adding an optional field to an object is not a breaking change, because applications that are using the previous schema, they will still be able to run. However, if we are deleting, or if we're renaming a field, if we're changing the type of a field, this is a breaking change, meaning that it's only going to work with a new schema model, and users that are still working in using the application with an older version, they'll have trouble synchronizing because they will have an unsupported schema. So this is important to understand, and they also have a very huge diagram to help you understand like how we should do all of these changes. You can open this image in a new tab, or maybe I can zoom in. I don't think I can zoom in. What's going on there? Okay, it simply downloads it. So if I open it here, we're gonna see how we should apply different changes. So on the left, there are non-breaking changes, then we have breaking or non-breaking, and later we have all the breaking changes. So for example, if we want to add a property, this is where we're gonna look at. Let me maybe zoom in a bit. Yeah, if we want to add if we add a new object, no problem, that's a non-breaking change, everything is going to work fine. If we have to add a property, then it depends, like if this property is optional, then as well, not big problem. If it's not optional, we have to make the changes, then we have to update manually all the documents, not manually, but update all the documents to provide a value to that new property. Then we have to restart the synchronization and so on. But yeah, let's go through one of these changes, and let's add one of a property and see this in action. So what I want to add here, because in the drag and drop features, we're going to need to store some kind of a field here on our task that will represent what is the position of that task in the list. So the first one will have value 1, 2, 3, and so on. So let's go ahead and start adding it as position. And then the value, the type of it is going to be, if we specify number, it's going to work, but the MongoDB will store it as a double. In our case, we want to store it as an integer. JavaScript doesn't have an integer field, so we're gonna use realm.types.int, and then we can even define it with equal to 0 to provide it, because if we don't do that, our field is going to be optional, but we can initialize it with 0 just to make sure that everything works that was already in the database. So adding this position, what should we do next? I think we can reload the application, and everything worked. Just to make sure that everything works, let's also display the field position on the screen. So let's go in the components, task list item. This is the item that renders one task. So besides the task description, let's also render here the task dot position. So all of them are 0. Okay, so that means that it correctly set it there. Okay. If you did if you did a mistake, or if you want to change something, for example, if you want to go from integer to an actual number, you're gonna see an error saying that the task.position has been changed from int to double. So what we have to do, we can check here in the diagram, is that we required a property change. It was an optional, yes. We added the optional field. Yeah, actually we started from here. We added an optional property. We follow the line, we go here, and here is if statement. If we are in development mode, if yes, we simply have to make the schema change on the object model in the client code, and Atlas update the schema accordingly. But the thing is that we changed something else. So in that situation, we're gonna have to, what we did just now, we changed the property type here, and it goes in the breaking. So if we have breaking changes, that's what I was trying to show you as well. If we have a breaking change, what happens? Can you create a new schema with a change rather than updating the existing schema? No, we are going to terminate the sync, make the schema change in the client code, update the impacted document, and restart and synchronize. So it's a lot of things are happening. But in fact, what we should do easier is to go ahead and delete the previous one from Atlas. That's what I was doing basically. I was going back to Atlas because I'm still in development, so there is a lot of things that are much easier compared to if you're in production, because in production you don't want to lose all of this data. In development, we can go to Atlas, we can delete the previous, for example, position from here, and after pressing save, it will ask us if we want to reinitialize and synchronize. So let's deploy and reinitialize. This will basically, if I'm not mistaken, will delete all the data, so it's okay because we are in development. We're gonna wait a bit for this thing to change, to happen. And after that, you can simply add this new field, the changed field. So it's saved. We can go back to our code. We can reload because we changed it to a position number. If we go back to the schema and reload, it should be added here as double. Oh, why am I having it like this? Sorry, guys. Hello, Catalin. Hello, Bolik. Hello, Daily Tech. So do we have here the new field? Well, we have to reload the app again. After that, it will synchronize, I think. We can reload here. It should be there. Yeah, position as double. So what I'm gonna do is probably this time I'm gonna manually change it here to an integer, probably to a long. Let's do save. Or better even delete it, because I want to go back. I don't know. I just wanted to show you how we can do these breaking changes. Because in the end, like, I need it as an integer. So position, let's delete it, save, redeploy. Come on. Saved. Now we can go back to our code. I'm gonna do Ctrl Z to go back to type int. I'm gonna reload the application. Maybe it's gonna need to be reloaded 2 times. The first one, it needs a reset. The second time, it works. And if I go back, I have an integer there. position long integer. Perfect, amazing. So they're all initialized with 0, and even if I do a new task, it's going to default to 0 because we are not providing the position there. So what in fact we should do is, let's go ahead and see where are we creating this new task. I think we're doing that on the task board. No, on the task list, on one of these columns. On one of these columns, we have create task, and this one is not specifying the position that we want to set for the newly created task. How do we know the position? Well, I think we just have to take the maximum position value of all the tasks in that list and then simply add 1. To do that, we can accomplish it using, here we are fetching the tasks using the query. I think we can do the same doing use query tasks and then checking maximum, and this maximum we can provide the property, and the property is position. So this is going to be max position, and max position might also be null if there are no items there. So in that case, I want to default to 0. Now we take this max position, and when we create a new item, we simply set the position of that item to max position plus 1. And it said that max position can also be a date because this maximum returns number or date. So I will do here as number because we know that position is a number. In this case, this works. So now if I'm going to do new, it's going to take maximum position, which is currently 0, and I expect it to have 1. Then another. That's a very weird way of spelling another. So just like that, we see how we can fetch the maximum value of a field from a query. That's really easy to do, and I'm really happy that Realm makes it that easy. Like, we didn't have to keep track of it manually, we didn't have to loop, to find, to search. Like, it's a simple .max function after we do a query. So yeah, that's nice. Is it possible to do drag and drop manually without any libraries? That's what we're going to try to do today. So stay tuned, and we are going to do it manually. I'm not going to use any library except the Reanimated and Gesture Handler. Gesture Handler just to help us manage the gestures, like the dragging gestures, and Reanimated to animate the position of our items when dragging them. So that's the only 2 libraries that we're going to use for the animation. Okay, so that's good. We can do that. And if, for example, we are deleting the number 5 and 4 and then creating a new one, it should have 1 because, yeah, the previous ones are 0, 0, 0. And if there are no tasks first, yeah, it has the position 1, and then, like, everything starting from here, everything is going to be smoothly. There is a small bug. I'm not sure if it's going to give us any headache. For example, if we delete these 2 tasks, then we have position 1, then position 4, 5, 6, and so on. Like, it's not going to affect us very much, but maybe in future it will. So we're going to see. Alternatively, like, when we delete an item, we can go through all of the items below it and update their position to match the new position. But we're going to see if we need to do that. We're gonna cover it in a moment. Another thing that's important here is to make sure that when we query the tasks, we are sorting based on position, because otherwise they can appear in weird sorting, and that we saw it previous time when we ran it side by side on Android. So that's why we have this position. We have it in order to sort the items. Again, it's super easy to do that with Realm. So for the use query where we get the tasks, we're going to do here .sorted, and you can provide here the field position. If we do that, everything works as it was working before, but we can check here if we provide the second parameter true, that is going to be reversed, so we see that it actually works. So if it's false, it renders ascending. If it's true, it's rendering descending. So we know that now the sorting method works as well. So, all right, we're doing a bit of progress. Let's go ahead and do a git. Why am I on this branch? That's a bit weird. Status. No, we are on main branch. That's good. We updated a couple of components, the model. So let's go ahead and do a git add, git commit -m position field and sorting. Okay. Okay, so now that we have this position, we're going to probably be able to implement the drag and drop, and updating the position, it should update the items order in the list. Okay, okie dokie. So, should we get started with drag and drop? Just a little disclaimer, I've been working on this drag and drop feature the whole day, so from morning till now, and it's quite challenging. Like I was challenged, but it's a fun challenge, like playing with all of this. So yeah, let's go through it together and let's implement these drag and drop features. If you have experience with Reanimated and Gesture Handler, and if you're watching this live, let me know, because throughout this tutorial I might need your help. So let's go ahead and start. As I was saying, with drag and drop, we're gonna use two important libraries. We're gonna use React Native Gesture Handler that is going to allow us to respond to gesture events on the screen, and then Reanimated that is going to allow us to animate the objects on the screen. So let's go ahead and start by installing these two libraries, and I'm going to install them using npx expo install React Native Gesture Handler space React Native Reanimated. So these are the two libraries. Now, if you go to the getting started guide of Reanimated, if you look at the installation guide, after npx install, we should also make sure to add the plugin, the Reanimated plugin, to the Babel. So let's go to babel.config and make sure to add it as the last plugin here. Okay. Now that's everything for Reanimated. For Gesture Handler, what we have to do, also in the documentation it's explained, so make sure to check it whenever you're following some installation. Like if something is not working, double check with documentation. So here in the installation, we see that after installing it, we need to wrap our whole application in this Gesture Handler root view, and also with this style flex one is important. So let's go ahead, and where is the entry point of our application? You might think it's app.tsx, but the problem is that this app.tsx was before we set up Expo router. So in fact, we don't even need this app.tsx. So let's remove it not to get confused, because now we are using Expo router in this application. So the entry point, so the whole application is this app folder, and the entry point, like where we need to specify global providers, is that layout.tsx. This is the root layout. So let's go ahead and import gesture handler root view, this one. And let's render it, instead of this empty tag, let's render a gesture handler with a style flex one, and make sure that the closing at the end, the last tag, is also the closing of gesture handler. Okay, now we're gonna have some errors. That's because we need to rebuild our application. So let's stop the server and let's do npm run iOS. Maybe even, yeah, let's try run iOS. Maybe we should like pre-build it again. We're gonna see if npm run iOS will work. What do you use to get those suggestions on terminal window? Oh my god, that's some kind of autocomplete package for my terminal, but I cannot tell you right now. Like, I set it up like years ago and I just use it. But I want to create a tutorial on how to set like the terminal similar to how I have it here. But yeah, no time right now because I'm really spending like most of the time working on our upcoming course. If you don't know, like I'm working on a huge React Native course based on projects that will teach you all the fundamentals, everything you need to know about React Native and Expo in order to build React Native applications. It's going to have 7 unique projects. 3 of them are already done and are waiting for me to start recording. But yeah, and that's where most of my time is going these days. Okay, so our application is running again. And now I think it also has the gesture handler and the reanimated. I hope. If you have any other issues, make sure to do npm start --clear to clear the metro bundler. That's important for Reanimated to start working properly. And when you see this window, make sure you're not in Expo Go. Here I am in Expo Go, so I'll press S to switch to development build. And now I can press I or R to reload the application here. Maxim is saying that my auto suggestion is ZSH auto suggestions, most probably. And it works only based on it recommends the previous command that you wrote. So if I do npm, it's going to recommend my previous command, npm start. Pretty helpful. Anyway, we have our application running here. And we have gesture handler and reanimated set up. Now let's think about how we're gonna set everything up and start working on that. The area where I want my cars to be able to be dragged is actually the whole application, like the whole screen, right? Because I want to be able to take it and move it like even outside the box of my list. So I think that I will go ahead and create a separate file for my dragging capabilities, and that's going to be outside of my task board list and so on. So let's go ahead in the components, maybe. Let's create a new component called, how did I call it? The task drag area. .tsx. Let's go ahead and define a simple component first that will render something like this. And let's go ahead and render this task drag area. Not sure where, but I believe it's going to be in the task board. Maybe not. Now, if I look at the task board, I still have a safe area view, which I don't need it anymore because I have like proper header. I have a navigation, the stack navigation, and the safe area view is handled by the navigation, so I can safely remove it from here. Now, let's go ahead and try to render the task drag area in the task board. In the task board, maybe, yeah. Okay, so we see a text there at the bottom. But as I said, I want to make sure that this view expands on the whole screen. So I'll try to go with an absolute position view. So I'm gonna use the style sheet. Let's import from here style sheet. So let's use the shorthand style sheet dot absolute fill. And also a background color red. I don't know, just to see it on the screen. Yeah, the application will do that from time to time. And yeah, it's working, but the thing is that it's only here. It doesn't go above. Not sure if that's what I want, but maybe. So yeah, let's leave it like this. And because while I was preparing, I put it even like on a higher level just to go even above the header. But for now, I believe that it can be only here, like in this area, and to have like the header as a separate thing. Okay. Now, on this red background, this is going to be our dragging area. What I want to do here is I want to render a separate task list item. Because what actually will happen if I go to taskboard or maybe if I remove the red from here, what I want to happen there is whenever I press on one of these items, I want to basically hide the previous one and display a new one that is only going to be handled by our drag area. So basically it's going to look that we took the same item from there, but in fact, like we're gonna delete the previous one and create a new one on top of everything so that we can move up and down. So for that reason, I'm gonna go back to this background color red. And instead of this text here that we don't need it, what I want to do is I want to render one task list item and on top of this. But at the same time, I don't want all the feature of this task list item. I don't want the draggable item to be deletable, to be able to handle link, press events, and so on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to duplicate this task list item to task. Let's call it dummy task, dummy or dragging task. Yeah, better name, dragging task. Let's open dragging task. Let's rename it here, dragging task. I'm not going to need a link first of all. So let's remove a link first because the dragging task will not need to redirect us anywhere. I will also not need a pressable. So let's switch from a pressable to a view. That's probably it. The rest, and I don't need the icon for the delete. I just need it like this. That means that I don't need the delete from here. That means that I don't need the realm here as well. Another thing that this item is going to be different is that it's not, instead of receiving the actual data about a task, let's go ahead and receive a task ID or dragging task. Let's go call it ID. And this ID is going to be a bison.object ID. Now, knowing this ID, we can easily take the query the task using use object from realm. In use object, we need to provide here the object that we want to query, task, and as a second parameter, we need to provide the ID itself. So now if we get the ID, we query the task, then we are rendering it here. Let's go ahead and render this dragging task on our task drag area. Let's render it like this, and we need to provide here an ID. Where do we take an ID? I don't know, let's console log some IDs and that we have already in the application. For example, I'm gonna comment this out. In our task list, we have tasks here. Let's do a console log tasks just to see what IDs do we have. So ID, it's object ID. Okay, not very helpful. Let's do tasks.toString. No, that's not what I want. Tasks at position 0.id. Yes, now it renders as a string, so we can copy this ID that we will hardcode now, but later we're gonna properly send it. And let's go back to our drag area and provide this ID here. So let's store it in a, most probably it's going to be a state variable. So, but let's start with a simple string. I lost the ID. Where is it? Here. So let's see if at least it works. Dragging task, we need to import dragging task here. ID shouldn't be a string, it should be a bison, an object ID. So let's do new bison.object ID and provide here the string. Now it's going to crash from time to time. That's already okay. How do we, why do we have to switch from Expo Go? We have to switch from Expo Go because we are using a Realm. Here we're using Realm. And Realm has some custom native code that is not available in Expo Go. So that's why we need to build a custom development. We need to create a development build, which is basically our own version of Expo Go. And there we can have any kind of native code, and that enables us to use Realm in Expo. Okay, so we have the task there on the top. Perfect. Dragging task, it's there. So if I remove this red background, or maybe let's do here RGB. Can I do here RGBA? Yeah, so I'm gonna have a background like this, so that later on I'm gonna show you like when we are focused on the draggable area and when we see the previous one. So if I do here 0, it's going to be transparent. So now we see everything behind and also this task here. Perfect. The dragging task, like about the sizing, how should we make sure that they are the same size as the other one? To be honest, I'm not really sure, so maybe I'm going to simply add it inside a view here, where I will set style equal, and let's see what kind of styles do we apply there. I don't know, should we go with based on the screen dimensions, const width equal use window dimensions, and go ahead with width. I think most of the spacing is padding, so width should be width minus something, minus 100. I don't know. So our spacing comes from our application index here, from the task board actually, task board. It has padding 10, so 10 here, 10 there, that's 20 in the task list. Not very good way. In the task list we have task list item. And the task list item has task list gap 5 is gap, no, this is just gap. Container, does it have anything? Padding 10. And task board, padding 10. So it should be 40 in total. Not the best way of calculating this width, but I think it should work. Okay, it is. So yeah, that's our width. So now it's styled properly. And even if we do align self-center, it's going to be here in the center. Maybe we're not going to need it this one later, just because our task is going to be also position absolute, as we will want to move it around the screen. Okay, we are starting with something. Let's go ahead and hide the background so that we can focus only on this area. Now that we have a dragging task, let's go ahead and see how we can add this dragging mechanism. Well, for that, we're going to first have to set up a gesture handler, a gesture detector with a pan gesture. The pan gesture is exactly used for this kind of dragging, the gesture that happens when we drag our finger across the screen. So let's see how we can accomplish that. First of all, we need to import two things. We need to import the gesture and also the gesture detector. Using the gesture, we will define our pan gesture using gesture.pan, and I'm going to add here on start. Maybe we need to call pan on start, and the on start will have is a callback function that will say console log started. Now, having this gesture, we need to provide it somewhere using the gesture detector. So our gesture detector will go around all my my gray area, which is my area where I want to handle the gestures, and we need to provide here to the detector the gesture that we define at the top. And just like that, we should see a console log in our logs here when we start dragging across this area, no matter where it works, started. So yeah, another thing that here on start, another callback function that we can provide to the pan, you can check them here in the documentation. There is callback functions for on begin, on start, on end. What I'm interested in is on update. Or maybe on change, we'll see. So if I provide here a dot, we can actually chain all of these callback functions like on start, then we can provide on update. It's going to receive an event with more data about the update, and we can do a console log event. If I do that, reload, I need to remove a console log from somewhere, from here. Task drag area. So if I do that, we see that at every frame, like it console logs the update of our gesture, and it has things like translation X, translation Y, has X, Y, and so on. So knowing this translation, knowing how our finger moved across the screen, we can say them and then apply them as the position of our element of our dragging task. Because if we go ahead and provide this dragging task without analyze self, but with position absolute, and then we can provide here top 10 to move it around and left 50, for example. So just by changing these two values, top and left, we can move it around. But first we need to keep track of them. So to keep track of them, we're gonna use to keep track of them, we cannot use a state variable, because these values of where we need to move this item, they will update so often that updating the state and re-rendering our component every time that we drag and we update here is going to be very, very inefficiently. So we need to store and work with these values on the UI thread. Working on a UI thread, like, it's much more performant and allows us to move items easier, and it's perfect for animation. So a value, a variable on the UI thread, to declare it, we can do it using the use shared value from Reanimated. The value that we want to store is going to be drag X is going to start with 0 probably, and const drag Y is going to be use share value 0. Now, when we update, what I want to do is do drag x dot value. I want to update it with event dot. I will go with some values like absolute, but we're gonna check later what exactly we need there. Absolute y. So what we're doing here is we are updating these values, but we need to apply them back to our view here, to this view, where we have absolute. To do that, we need to transform this view to an animated.view. Animated.view. We need to import animated from Reanimated. If I do like this, make sure to import it from Reanimated and not from React Native. So if I look at the top, animated is imported from Reanimated. Now, for this top and left value, I can go ahead and provide our drag x. No, top is drag y and the left is drag x because left and right. If I reload, if I try now to do, as you can see, we already have some dragging enabled. Why it calls start so often? I don't know. Maybe I should try begin. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so something is happening, not exactly how we want, but anyway, it's working. We're gonna figure out like how to properly position it because it's going to change a lot as we implement like the next and the next and the next feature. But yeah, like it works very nicely. Can drag. Okay. Now let's go ahead and continue this one with a slight change. I want the item that we're dragging not to be any kind of random item. I want the item that we are rendering to be specifically the item that we will select. I'm gonna go to a transparent view here that we long press here. So after we long press one item, I want to update this one that we see here. But now long pressing is not going to actually work. Because we have our view on top, right? The gesture detector view. So it's on top, so the things below it is not interactive. That's interesting. What I'm thinking that we should do is, I think that we need to disable somehow this view or this gesture detector when no item is selected and enable it only when we select one of the items. To do that, let's go ahead and store the ID of the selected item in state. So let's go ahead and define here const dragging task ID and then set dragging task ID equal to use state, and let's initialize it. Let's say that this state, we need to import it from React, This state is going to be of type bson.objectID. It should also be initialized with null probably. Now let's go ahead and take this dragging. Did I name it correctly? Dragging? No. Dragging. Yeah, dragging. Now, if there are no dragging task ID, let me actually copy this one for a moment. I will add it here just as a backup option. So in this item, let's go ahead and select here. Let's send the dragging task ID, which comes from a state. And also let's make sure that probably we need to simply hide this view if there are no dragging items. So if dragging task ID exists, only then display the view with the dragging area. Let's try to reload and see if that's going to work. Now, but the gesture detector should still have something otherwise. So drag area. Maybe I should render it conditional, like if dragging task ID with question mark, render this thing. Otherwise, at the end, render a view that doesn't have any size. So now we don't see this, this view, because otherwise we would see it as it has a gray overlay. But if we set it with this value here, new, then we see it. Okay, so that's good. If there is nothing, we don't see it, and now our content and items are interactable. And if we're gonna set it in state, we're gonna overlay that and make sure that we are only handling the dragging in that situation and not interacting with the things behind. But how do we set this dragging task ID whenever we long press on one of these items? Well, long pressing on one of the items is not very hard, because we're gonna go into the task list item, the item that is rendering here in this list. And this pressable has a callback function called on long press, which we can do console log long press. So if I'm gonna long press on one of these items, we see long press. But we need access to this state here. So there are a couple of ways we can basically use to send it through props, but in that situation we're going to get into an issue of prop drilling, where we're going to have to send this from a component to another component to another component. And I think a better way is to use a React context to make this setter, to make this function available to all the other components, so anyone can import it, call it, and so on. So it's going to make a lot of things easier. We're not going to have to pass props up and down components. We're going to simply use a React context. So for that, let's go ahead and create this context. Let's call it dragging context, const dragging context. And let's create it using create context function, create context. It's going to be an empty, it's going to be an object, the context. I would go ahead and also define the type, dragging context. It can have the same name because this is a const, this is a type. And I will specify that this context should be of this type. So what's the one thing that we need in that context? We need a function called set dragging task without ID, just set dragging task, and that function, that property of our context should be a function that will receive an ID as a bson.object ID and will return nothing back, void. Now it tells us that we need to provide this default function in our context when we create it, and the default function can be as simple as this, like an empty function. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this dragging context and I'm going to render it. I'm going to wrap everything here in the dragging context dot provider, because this way we're going to provide this value to the other components. Provider, and here we need to specify the value, and the value should have the how's it called? Set dragging task. Let's implement this function, which will have an ID of type bson.object ID. We're going to take that ID and we're going to set it in state. I'm not directly sending the state here, because in a moment you're going to see that I'm going to have like a bit more logic here. Like I'm going to send a bit more information other than only the ID. So that's why now it looks a bit overkill, but in a moment we're going to get there. So with this context, we are exporting and we make sure that all the child components will have access to it. And whenever I have a context provider, I also like to export a helper hook call that will help us consume that context. In this case, we're going to call it use dragging context, which is going to be a function that will simply wrap use context dragging context. Now, whenever we use this hook, we are in fact like shortcutting to a use context dragging context. We have to actually do one more thing, because right now, if we're gonna take this use dragging context, if I'm gonna go into my task list item, and here, if I'm going to do const something equal use dragging context, and then we're gonna get the set dragging task. And if I call this set dragging task inside my own long press, set dragging task, and here we need the ID, which is task.id. If I do that, it's not gonna work, and we can check that with some console logs. And I'm gonna explain, because this is quite a common problem, like when you're working with contexts. Let's go to the drag area, and here let's do a console log implemented. This is the implemented function that we're sending to the context, and I'm gonna do a console log where we create the context saying not implemented or default. So you're gonna see that if I don't do any change and go ahead and now long press on one of this stuff, we're gonna see that we're getting access to the default function, not to the implemented function. Why? Because the component task list item that is consuming our context is not actually a child of our dragging context provider. And to see why, we can look at where is this component task drag area used. Task drag area is used in our task board, and it doesn't have any childs. So that's why in our screens we do not have access to that. Here, task drag area. What we should in fact do is we should expand this component task drag area to make sure that we send here some children, and the children will be the whole task list like this. So now if we go ahead, it's not going to be rendered, but if we properly render them inside the task drag area, the task list and all the children, like the item, they will have access to the context that is inside our task drag area. Task drag area has a context. The only thing that we need to do is in this task drag area to receive the children property. We can type it also with props with children from React and render these children as a child of a provider, because now we don't see anything. That's because we are not rendering them. I'm not sure where we should render them, but it should just be as somewhere here, like this is still going to work. I think that's okay. Now if I'm gonna go and hold, we see that we enable this task and it's rendered here. And now I can drag it. And I think what I want to do is when we finish this activity and we release the finger, I want to reset the dragging task back to null so that we can see what's behind once again. We can accomplish that in the gesture.pan if we provide that on on end or on finalize. That's probably on finalize, because whenever we finalize this thing, like no matter if it was active or not, we need to make sure that we're resetting it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to do set dragging task to null, but you're going to see a problem. If I'm going to try to hold, press, long press, it works. If I do that, if I release, we see set dragging is not a function. Why? Well, that's also another issue that might be very hard to debug. And to understand why that's happening is that our callback functions, they are called on the UI thread. They are called in a worklet, which is in a UI thread, and that makes it very fast and performant. But we're trying to call the set dragging task, which is a use state, and this use state lives on the JavaScript thread. So we're trying to access a function that is not available in the context where it is being called. Well, there is a helper function in Reanimated called run on JS, and here we provide the name of a function that we want to run. For example, set dragging task. Actually, it was this, but it's the same, set dragging task ID, and then another pair of brackets with a value that we want to send. So this run on JS will receive a function, will give us back another copy of that function. So the copy of that function we're calling with the properties that we want to send there. Now, if I'm gonna long press, it's gonna work. I'm gonna then be able to take it and drag it. I'm gonna release and it goes, it disappears. Then if I do here another one like this, it's gonna crash. Yeah, now I can take it, drag it, and that's it. I can take another one. Go ahead, take it, drag it, that's it. Take the first one, take it, drag it. Now it's not perfect. Like it's expected, like I first click, then it moves into this mode, then I have to start again, like dragging, and then it works. But shortly, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Okay, so I no longer need this one. I no longer need this console. I'm gonna clean up a little bit the code because it's going to get messy. Let's go ahead and actually do a, I don't need this implemented, a git add, git commit, basic and broken drag and drop. We have something, it's still broken, but at least we have it. So what do we need to do next? I think it's about positioning, like to, when dragging, to have it like right underneath the area, like underneath the finger, like when you're dragging it, right? Hello, hello. How are you doing? Oh, okay. What I want to do now is whenever I long press on one of these items, I want the dragging task to be positioned exactly on top of it. So if I long press on the first, I want when we move into the dragging mode, I want the dragging item here to be displayed on top of it. And when I press on this one, I want it to be rendered there as well. For that, that's a bit of a challenge. Like for that, we need to basically know the position of the item that we are long pressing on the screen. So the item that we are long pressing is this task list item. When we long press, we need to know what is the initial position of this item on the screen so that we can use it for our dragging item. To get the initial position, I'm not exactly sure how to do that, but I was looking for measuring the window. So there is a layout function in React Native that is being called whenever our component layout changes, and it gives us the width, height, X and Y. But X and Y, they are based on the parent component. It's not based on the screen. So if I'm gonna do here, for example, if this pressable, I'm gonna do on layout, and then I'm gonna take the event, and then I'm gonna do console.log event.native event.layout. We are going to see that all of them, yeah, they have a height, we have a width, but X and Y, they're all 0 because this pressable in the parent, it's going to be at position, its relative position. Even if I do it on this link, it's not gonna solve it because the link is only like as a small wrapper, so it's still 0, 0, 0. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure if the on layout, it seems like it should be like how I'm supposed to take it, but in fact it's not. Maybe you guys know a better way. I was also thinking about looking into the task list, and instead of doing render item, there is also a cell renderer component. Does it have item here? Let me check how to work with cell renderer, React Native. Because every item in a flat list, it's rendered inside a component there. So maybe that's why I'm not getting it. But if I look at the cell renderer, allows how cells are rendered by render item. Okay. Are wrapped when placed into the underlying scroll view. This component must accept event handlers without notifying. This component must. Can I have an example of cell renderer? React Native example. On layout. Do you want me to pronounce your name? Oh my god, that's gonna be challenging. Raghunad? I hope I pronounce it correctly. My custom. Allow customizing how cells are rendered. This component must accept event handlers, which notify of changes. React type cell renderer. Let me check. I don't know. Is it? No. Flatlist task given for element is not a component cell renderer task props. But it also should have a render item cell renderer. Will it have the children, and I can render them here as children? Yeah, and here will I be able to do on layout and do the did I remove on layout? Probably. So event, let's do a console log event dot native event dot layout. Okay, we have something. So yeah, the problem was that by adding this on layout inside our task list item was giving us 000 because the task list item behind the scenes is rendered inside a component called cell renderer. And the way to take the information of the component that renders our items, we provided here a cell renderer component that wraps around our children and have this on layout. And now we see that it has information about the X and Y of our components. So what do we do with them? Do we have index here? Yes, we have index. Should we store this information in an array and then pass it down to the render item? I implemented it like way differently, but this one kind of looks interesting. So let me think what would be the best way. Another way that would be a bit naive, but anyway it's going to work, is providing to this task list item a height of not 49.3 but a fixed height of 50. So now we see that the first item is at position 0, then 55, 110. Another thing that maybe we should do is, instead of providing a gap to the flat list, let's maybe add to the task list item here. Well, margin is not going to work. Well, we can have like even an outer container. An outer container. Styles dot, I know, root. And maybe this root will have height 50 and then padding vertical 10, 5. What did I do? Padding vertical to the root container. if it's going to be 60. What? Why is it working like this? Wait a second. Oh, because yeah, we can do here height 100% and maybe some padding. Padding vertical. Okay, 5. Maybe it's too much. 3, 2. 3. Okay, we're gonna see that the best approach. Align items center to make them horizontally centered as well. Okay, and this height, I don't know, let's go ahead and store it as a export const. Export const item height equal to 60. And let's simply assume that all of them will have the same height. I think it's going to be easier for us to work with. And later on, we can also implement like this cell renderer because we saw that we already can have this information. So we see that it's 0, 60, 120. So basically, it's the index of an item multiplied by 60, by the height of one item. So I'm going to comment this out because maybe we're going to return to this, but now let's simply assume that all of them are 60 pixels high, and now we're going to be able to determine like their position. So okay, that's interesting, that's challenging. In the task drag area, let's start by defining, or let's do it like this. When we call this set dragging task, let's also, besides the ID, let's also send the X and Y position, or maybe only the Y position. For now, I think we can go with only the Y position. And we're going to take this Y position. And when we call the function, where is it? Set dragging task should have a Y number. When we do that, let's do set, not set, but Y. Y. Drag Y dot value equal to the Y value that we received. And the drag X is going to be equal to, I don't know, 10, 20, something like that. We're going to figure it out. So now when we call this function from the task list item here, let's go ahead and say the Y value is going to be something like the index. We need to also know the index of this item. So let's also from the task list, take the index here and send it to our item index. Or can we work with position? I don't know. Index. And in the task list, let's receive this index. We're going to specify the type index of type number. So knowing the index and knowing the item height, we can kind of calculate the Y position. So it's going to be index multiplied by Y. Not Y, but card height or item height. It's going to be a bit to the top. Yeah, it's going to be a bit to the top because let's think about the first item. The first item, we are calculating here index 0, item height doesn't matter, the answer is going to be 0. So if I press on it, it's going to be at the value 0. The other one is going to be a little bit to the bottom. So we need to offset the amount of space we have here. How much? I have no idea. So we can go with some random number until we fit it. Too much, 75. As we move, like guys, we're gonna fix all of these changes. Like I just want something that at least will work. So now I think it works nice like this. Nice. Yeah, I think it kind of matches the position. And I can reduce in the drag area. I can reduce this to 0.1. Yeah. And yeah, we see that the height of this item is a bit different, because if we go into the dragging task, we can also make sure that the height is 60. I'm gonna hard code it. Now it's almost the same. $73 probably is going to be that. Yes. Nice. Now in the drag area, another thing that I wanted to do here in the animated view that I didn't do, but it adds a little bit of a nice touch, is doing a transform. I want to rotate this item, the dragging item, a bit, and that's what actually happens in Trello. So I'm not sure if you are aware of Trello, but let me show you what we're trying to accomplish. Here are some old boards that I have, and when we try to drag, like as you can see, it rotates a bit this item. So we can accomplish that with a transform by providing here rotate, I don't know which one, X. Let's do 3 degree. Probably not X. Y, probably not Y. Z, yes, it's Z. So just like that, we have this nice thing. Okay. So the initial position is generated correctly, but then when we actually take it to drag, I'm gonna move here to much higher so that we can understand when we are in drag mode. If I take it, like it jumps from where I have it here. What I might do is, instead of on update, let's try on change. The on change is very similar to on update, but the event will also have the dot change x, which is going to be a very small value representing how much the position x changed from the previous time this callback was called. So I can take the drag value and I can simply add the change. So this will work with the initial value, but simply add the change y as well. Let's see if that will work. If I do that, if I start dragging, now it follows nicely my cursor. If I come here, take it, it simply adds the amount of dragging that we are doing. It adds to the translation, so it feels like really smooth. So no matter from where we are taking this car, like even from here, like it's gonna work perfectly. Even from here, it's going to stay like this. So pretty cool. Okay, so we're slowly fixing some problems. Git status, git add, git commit -m. What did we fix right now? Select dragging item. Okay. Another thing, the next problem that I want to solve is when I select and I start dragging, like it doesn't work seamlessly. Like I need to long press, then I need to release my finger, and then I have to take it and start doing this. That's because when we start this gesture, like when we long press, we are not even rendering anything inside the gesture detector. And while we keep the long press, the gesture detector becomes visible, and it doesn't pick up the gesture from that moment. We have to release, basically cancel the previous long press event, and then start the gesture detector from the beginning, because gesture detector will automatically handle like when it considers it is as active or not. And if we look at the punch gesture, this is also very important to understand. That's also why we have on begin and on start. On begin is a callback that is being called when the given gesture starts receiving touches. At this moment, the gesture is not sure like if it's going to be a dragging gesture, but it receives some touches. And on start is the callback that is called when the gesture is recognized by the handler. So there are these states that are handled by the gesture handler detector to understand like, okay, there are some touches, but I cannot consider this as an active event yet. So that's actually what's happening. Like we are relying on the gesture handler to detect this gesture, but it didn't have like this initial phase of touching the screen. It was during the previous phase. So what I'm going to do is, instead of letting the gesture, maybe there are other options. So if you know better options, please let me know. How I implemented this one is having this manual activation. If I set to the pen gesture, the manual activation to true, then we are responsible for activating this gesture manually. So it's not going to work at all. It's never going to get from the state begin to the state start. And there is also this information about state management. You can have a look at different states, like how the gesture is going. And I think there is even a better documentation that Software Mention published recently. Began. Yeah, it's here. So you can see that initially it's under undetermined. We click on it, it's began and canceled. We click on it and start dragging, it's active. We click on it, we do it. And so yeah, it goes to cancel if it dictates a long press. It goes to fail if it's short. Then yeah, as you can see, it goes through all of this. So now that we set that we want to manually activate this gesture, we need to somehow actually manually activate it. The way we're gonna do it is we're gonna handle it through some other callbacks functions. For example, on touches down, on start. Set the callback that is being called when the gesture is on begin. Can we see if the on begin in this situation is being called? On begin console log begin. Let's see if I long press, go into this mode. No, it's not automatically called. So we cannot rely on begin either. Can we do it on touches down? On touches down, let's clear. If I long press, still not working. On touches down, still not working. But we can have this on touches move. Let's try this on when the touches are moving. Well, for some reason it's still not working. And I believe I know why. What if I render, just for an idea, what if I render the children, like the content behind, only if dragging task ID is null? So if I go here, it calls the one begin, you see? No, it's not reliable. Think the way I had it there is to only conditionally render inside the gesture detector. I'm gonna delete this and only conditionally render the task. So if dragging task ID, then render this. Hello Harsh, how are you doing? So now it has, but it doesn't scroll behind. And I think I was rendering the children inside the gesture detector as well, like as part of this view. Animated view, absolute fill inside the absolute fill. So it's actually on top. How did I implement it? Hello, Enzo. Something is happening. So if I do here in the on touches move, if I enable the gesture by taking the event, and then the second one is the state manager, and we can take the state management dot activate. In that case, it's going to do that and start moving. So now it works. But for some reason, I don't feel very good about it. I don't feel good that our children is part of a gesture detector. What if they are below the gesture detector? In that case, we're not gonna see the item. And if it's above, we're not gonna be able to click because we have this absolute view that doesn't allow clicks to pass through it. But we need it rendered, so it starts. Well, maybe we can do here a conditional height. Can I do height 0? And if there is no dragging task ID, just not to mount and unmount it, but just to change the height. In that case, dragging task ID, go with 0, otherwise undefined. No, it still remains the previous one, as you can see. So yeah, maybe having children here is the way to go. Or maybe even like in the gesture handler, like this, so that we have got more than one view. Can I do that? No. Have it like this. Now works nicely. And I no longer need the background color because it doesn't make a lot of sense having it. Why for some of them are and for some reason we lost what? We lost the padding there because taskboard has the padding. If I do it like this, yeah, padding is back. Now it works, drag works. Should I do all that drag item, the dragging task, to have a slightly lighter or darker color so that we can differentiate it? Color picker. Let's go with a darker. Yep. Maybe a border with 1, border color, a lighter gray like this. Or simply to add some shadow. React Native shadow generator. Let's pick this. I can go with this shadow color. Okay, now it looks better. Look at that. And I don't think I had to change the background color, and maybe no border at all, like just some shadow like that would look good. So I'm gonna take back the color and put it in the dragging task as background. Okay. Yes, now looks much better. You know what's missing in this dragging task? Align items center because the text was not centered. Now it's centered. Perfect. Sweet. Come on. Long press. Yes, works. Okay, nice. Let's go ahead and do a git add, git commit. What did we do now? Like, I forgot. We are still working on dragging and fixing. Drag initial position. That's what we worked at. I think so. Okay, nice. What's next? What's next? The next step is going to be to move other items around whenever we are hovering over them. So if I move this one, if I pick this one up, come on, and move to the top, I want all the other items to make space for it. So what I can do, I can accomplish that by applying to the task list item that is rendered in this list. I can apply to this root view. I can apply here some transform. I can apply some translation. Translate Y, for example, 60. So now all of them went to the bottom with 60 pixels. But I want to apply it conditionally only when the item that we are dragging is over it, right? So to apply it conditionally, it's probably also going to depend on a value that we're gonna receive, and we're gonna have to update all of these things on the UI thread. So let's go ahead and do an animated view. But yeah, let me first think about. Drag item. So in this drag area, I have the drag Y position. Knowing the drag Y position, I can calculate where we are hovering on top of. I can drag Y. I can export this drag Y position so that we can use it later in our components. Let's go ahead and say drag Y is going to be a shared value in our context. And we need to specify what type of shared value. It's going to be a number. Drag Y equal to, but it can also be missing. So I'm gonna do it with question mark. Then let's go ahead and export it from our context provider as drag y. Now inside our task list item, the item that is rendered in our list, we can take this drag y to know where the item that is being dragged hovering, where is it hovering to. So we can take that one and apply some styles based on it. Apply some styles on the root. So for that reason, we need to make it animated.view, and we import animated from not React Native as I did right now, but from Reanimated. Where is it? Let's try again. Select Reanimated. Here it is. Now we can apply here the default styles, but also some animated styles, such as let's try to define them here. Const animated style equal use animated style. With a use animated style, we can define some styles that are consuming some shared values, so that the animated style will update every time the shared values are updating. Then we can pass it to the style property of an animated view. And now from here, what we need to do is we need to return some styles, such as transform, translate y. So we need to translate y only if the drag y, like the position where we are dragging, is lower than the position of an item that we are rendering here. So if drag y dot value is lower, means that if the drag item is at the top of our item, and our item is going to be this value with a weird plus 73, that means that the dragging item is above us. So we need to translate, we need to make some space to move it down 50, or not 50, but item height pixels. Otherwise, don't move it at all. I'm not sure. We're gonna see what's happening and adjust accordingly. So now all of them are kind of spaced. If I'm gonna select one of them, what's happening? Don't like that. Well, another thing is that this drag y value, if we look at the drag area, is going to have value 0 even when no tasks are dragging. So let's go ahead and when we export the drag y, let's export the value only if there is an item that is being dragged at the moment. Dragging task ID, then export drag y, otherwise export undefined. And it says that in our task list item cannot read the value, so that's why we need to put here the question mark. Or maybe if drag y and drag y value is lower, then offset with item height, otherwise 0. Sorry. How to work with spinner wheel in React Native using npm component. You can use the activity indicator from React Native, and that's it. You don't need anything else. So if I select one of them, yeah, something is happening. As I move up, we make space for it. As I move down, yes. Nice. So what's happening here? We are translating, we are moving the item 60 pixels to the bottom only if we are dragging above it. If we're below, we leave them in their default position. So this way it looks like we are making space for it. If we want them not to jump, but to actually move slowly, we can put all of this condition inside a animation function called with timing. So I'm gonna put everything in with timing. And now look at this. Everything moves smoothly. So nice. Okay, going good so far. The thing is that when I take the item, I take it here in the dragging item, but it also remains in the list. So that's why we lose kind of the last item in the list because it goes below everything. So I think what we should do is we should hide the previous the item that we selected and we are rendering as in the drag area, we are rendering as the dragging task. I think that item should be kind of removed from the list or hidden somehow. We can accomplish that by knowing, we need to know like if this task list item is the one that is being dragged. So for that, we need a bit more information from our context. We need the dragging task ID. So let's export it from our context as a number, but it's a BSON object, or it can also be null, I think. So let's take this one. We're gonna set it to null. Okay. And let's export it from our provider here as dragging task ID. Now in the task list item, we're gonna take this item and we can check like if it's the current item that is rendered, don't render the item in the list. Otherwise, render it like this. So we can check if dragging task item dot is equal to task.id, then don't return anything, return null. Maybe it's not the best idea, but let's see. It's still in the list. I think we need to compare them as dot to string, the string values of their IDs, because they're all object IDs. So to string. Let's see. Okay, now we see that the item with position 7, if I take it to drag, come on, it disappears. And if I release it, it appears back. But because we are rendering null, our whole list is shrinking, as you can see. Should I render a view here, like empty? No, it's still shrinking. Oh boy. Maybe we shouldn't do translation. Maybe we should add spacing on the item that is at the border. What do you think? For example, instead of adding transform to all the items below, what if that's just an idea, let's try it out. What if we add some margin margin top, for example, if I add margin top item height, then all of them will have some space above. Yes. But if I add it only to the item that is at the border, only with the item that where we're hovering over, maybe that's going to work. So how do we know the item that we need to add it to? We can do something like this, but it's not exactly what we need, but we're gonna check. It's going to only 0. So it's going to add spacing to all the items below, but we need only to one of them. So if let's do it like this. If first of all, if drag y is undefined, we're going to return an empty object because there is no style there. Then we don't need to check this one here anymore. It's going to be a bit easier. Item height plus this. Const item y equal to this value, just to make our conditions easier. So in this situation, we're doing if drag y is lower than the item y, we need another condition to make sure that we only apply it to one item. If drag is lower, and at the same time if drag y dot value plus or minus item height is also lower or higher than item y. My brain is not braining at the moment. So this is if the item is below I need to visualize it. So we have so the first one has, I don't know, position 0, this one 100, and this one 200. If we are hovering, I don't know, here, at y, come on, at y 150, somewhere here, that means that we want these two items, only this item, to have margin on the top. So 150 is more than 100, the beginning of an item, if drag is more than item y, but at the same time is lower than the next item, which is item y plus item height. And at the same time, if it's less than the end of an item, then we add it. Let's see. Let me add a bit more tasks. So if I take this one, no. If drag value, if drag value is more than item y, and drag value plus item height is less than item y. No. And drag value is less than item y plus item height. We are comparing the beginning of an item and beginning of item plus item height, which basically means end of item. Now it should work. Yes. Perfect. We're gonna figure that out. But at the same time, we have to do a with timing here. Okay, something is working, but something is still buggy. You must change the second condition. Yeah, thank you very much, Fulbright. I think, here it's working. It tries to shrink down because, some cases, I think one of them should be equal. Probably any of them or both of them. Maybe one only. But it's only margin top. So when we are at the bottom, it's a bit weird. And what happens here if drag? Yeah, I need to return here if there is no item being dragged. We still need to return some margin top 0. Maybe 0, maybe with timing towards 0. Because if I release it, and another problem, I know which one it is, I think. So when we are way above the item, I think it works nice. When we are to the top, way to the top, it doesn't work, but I want to have it still here. So why? Let's look here. If we are in fact, this one would start from 100, let's say. And if we are at pixel 50, I want this item to have the spacing, but we are even outside his border, as you can see. So something like if index of this item equal to 0, if we are the first item, if index is 0, and drag y is dot value is less than item y, in that situation we want to still apply it. It's more, yeah. Well, even like this. So let's do here const margin, not const, but yeah, let's do let margin equal 0. Here, let's do I'll optimize a bit later. So if that's happening, we need to add margin. So it should be simply item height. If it's above the first item. If it's on top of the current item. So now if I go here, even if it's on top, like it's going to maintain that spacing, not only when we are in the area. And if we go here, goes perfect, perfect, perfect. Only when we get into the space where that item was, it doesn't work properly, because in that case, we are not adding the animated style. But I think we can do it to this view. If I take this and make it to an animated view, close it, and not have any styles for it, but only the animated styles that has margin, will it work? That's a question. Oh, come on, what's happening here? Let's go, drag and drop. So, from the top, boom, boom, boom. Still doesn't work, you see? Yep, yeah, boy. When I'm here, I want the 9th to already be on the top. I think I know why. Like all the items above the one that we're dragging works perfectly fine, but the ones below work with some gap. That's because we're not rendering the item, we're rendering What if we work with margin bottom? Yeah, with margin bottom, I think it's going to work better. It works here. It works below the item. It works... No, above the item doesn't work. Style the view. Hello, Aditya. Hello, Luhan. Style the view to look like a placeholder for the dragging item, maybe changing its background color. You mean behind the scenes? Question, Expo pre-build doesn't work with React Native SVG. No, it works. Expo pre-build works with everything, guys. Oh, basically I need to, even like if it's top or bottom, it doesn't matter. I need to understand, subtract some stuff from here. Oh, send help. Oh, what's happening with my camera? It lagged. Let me try to restart it. Come on. Are you working? That's nice. That's weird. It's even weirder. Oh, come on. Please work. Yeah, I see, Rafael, but I'm trying to figure it out why that's happening. And doesn't work. That's fun. Anyway, give me just 1 second. I'm gonna bring a coffee and we're gonna continue until we nail down this drag and dropping. Like until it's perfect. So give me 1 second, I'm gonna bring more coffee. Oh, but I don't have coffee, you know? That's a bad thing. I'm gonna bring some water. Okay, you cannot see me, but I am back. And I think my camera is not gonna work. But yeah, we're gonna probably work without camera. So I'm gonna put it like this, so you see better the screen. And we are going to continue. Let me know if it appears. Rafael is asking, what real-time database are you using to apply this offline first? I'm using Realm. Retro, that looks like, I don't know, like some kind of issues maybe with your SDK or Java or Android Studio. Cannot help like out of that console log. But anyway, here is our drag and drop. At the top it works nice, very nice actually. At the bottom it works a bit like with a little delay. If why we do it here. In a way, we are extracting the currently selected item from the list, but in fact, like we keep it there. So one way would be to also save in the dragging context the ID of the task that we're currently dragging, and then based on that, like calculate if we need to offset it or not. That would work, but it would add a bit of like necessary code. So I'm not sure. I think we're gonna simply move forward with this, and later we can fix this small issue. So let me add here. To do keep track of the currently dragging item and offset the comparison because it is deleted from the list. In a way, not really, but in a way it's deleted from the list. Anyway, I think that's really nice. So let's go ahead and do git status, git add, git commit -m. I don't know even how to call this small feature of drag offset or something like that. Or drag preview, like where the item is gonna go. And now what I want to do is when I actually release it there, I want to keep it there. Or in other words, I want to change the position of an item. So if I delete all of them and do first, second, third, If I take the third one and move it at the top, I want to keep it there. So how do we do that? Well, we somehow need to first of all understand call a function when we drop the item. That should happen somewhere in the task drag area. In the onFinalize, here let's do console log finish dragging or dropped. Let's call it dropped. So let's check if this is exactly what we expect. If I'm gonna take it, move, and then drop, it's called dropped. Nice. So what should we do? We need to call some kind of function to update that item. I think it's not the responsibility of the task drag area to update this. The responsibility is only to handle the dragging. So let's go to the task board. And here we have task drag area. Let's give there a function. Let's implement a function update item position. And here let's do task drag area. We're gonna send there update item position. This function. We're gonna do here, let's do console log update item position. What information do we need here? Well, first of all, the item ID and the Y value, right, as a number to know where did we drop it. Item ID is going to be a bison dot object ID. So let's go ahead and add this update item position in the task drag area as a children here. And these props with children, I think we can give here the props that we have besides the children, which is this update item position, which is a function that receives some kind of ID of type bison dot object ID and Y of type number. Now what we can do is having this function here, we can call it when we call dropped. And I think we will also have to do run on JS and then provide here the item ID, which is the dragging task ID, and then the Y value, which is the drag Y dot, should be value, I guess. So let's check on the task board. What are we receiving? Item ID, console log, Y. Let's see. So if I clear, reload, doesn't work, Y. Unexpected token, task ID. Oh, because it's a function that returns void. Come on. So here, if I take the third one, drop it here, we see dropped and the position where we dropped it. If we take the second one and move it below, it says it doesn't have the item ID, right? It doesn't have an item ID. Because in the drag area, run on JS, dragging task ID is a use state. but then we are resetting it. Is it because of this not being called in order? Why it's null here? Dot to string. Set dragging task ID. Do we ever set it properly? Console.log. Yeah, but here in the finalize, it's not there because it's on the UI thread. What if I do here a function const drop equal, it's a normal function, and here we're gonna call this update item with dragging task ID and with drag value, and even also here we're gonna reset it. We're gonna set dragging task ID back to null. And within this run on JS, we're gonna do simply run the drop on JS thread without any variables. Dropped item, this one, yeah, I think it's what I wanted. Okay, so let's go to the task board. We have here the item ID, we have here the Y value. So what's left to do is to find that item based on the ID and then update it. So we can do that. Let's just remind ourselves from the documentation of, how's it called? Not realm, but they renamed it so badly. The Atlas device SDK. Crude update. So updating an object. This is use object, but can we also like this? So the item to update, we need realm here. So const realm equal use realm. Then we are looking for a task. And maybe not objects, but maybe simply object does not exist. Can you read directly from realm? Can you Can you do that? Realm objects. What do we have? Realm dot find, something like that. Okay, I can do that with a query. Filtered ID is equal to item ID, and not ID but underscore ID. We need to import the task, and we need to do to update at position 0 dot position. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm gonna show you what in a moment, but here it's going to be to something to new position. So let me try with equal to 0 just to test it out to see if it works. For example, if second I'm gonna drop it somewhere, it updates to 0. Okay, that's good. And it's sorts it out. But we need to calculate the new position. So the way we're gonna calculate const new position is going to be the same way as we in the task list item we calculate the position. So we're gonna have to reverse engineer this call to know the index based on something. So it's going to be y divided by, or maybe y minus 73, and all of this divided by item height. Let's check new position. Okay, number is not integral, and it should be math dot floor to take an integer. Come on. Let's delete. What? Delete. Cannot set property position of undefined. Are you calling this one? Why do you call is dropped? Well, because in the task drag area, we are calling this is dropped, even if there are no dragging task ID. That means that, you know what's the problem? Here is the problem. Console.log activate. Look at the console. Even if we don't have anything to drag, like it's activating. So I think we should only activate if there is a dragging task ID. Only then we should activate it. So now it's not activating. Drop. Should I do this is on end, because on end is called only after activating. So finalize is always called when we finish the gesture, and is only called after activating. So if I do that, nothing happens. If I take this one and try to drag, drop it, now it works. Okay, let's do some tasks here like this. And if I take the fourth and move it between 1 and 2, the fourth with name G, will get the value 3. Wait, yeah, because we have some weird numbers at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I take 4 and move it between 1 and 2, the number 4 will have position 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 5. But it should be position 2. So I think it's not floor, but seal. We're gonna try again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we take 4, put it below 1, it should become 2. It becomes 2. And the next step is the rest of the items that we have here to increase their position, right? So this is to update, and this is const to increment equal realm.objects. We're gonna find all the tasks filtered where position is more than the first argument, which is new position. So everything that is more or equal, and I'm not sure if that's going to work, but we can check the documentation. In the documentation here, operators, what kind of operators? Yeah, I think it should work. More or equal. Yes, let's try. So if position is more than the one that we are updating, then we query them here, and we are going to loop through them and update all of them. How? Don't ask me. In the quick start, I think there was I think what we need to do in this realm, right, is to go ahead and loop through to increment dot for each task. We just have to go ahead and do task dot position equal or plus equal 1. Will that work? I don't know. We can try. Let's clear 1, 2, 1, 2, this one, and this one. So we have 3 with position 3, 4 with position 4, 5 with position 5. If we take the fourth one, put it below 1 and 2, I expect it to have requires a callable argument. Filtered. Let's do it again. If I take the fourth, drop it below 1, I expect the position of 4 to become 2, which didn't work. It became 4. Oh, because it's the same item. So we need to also check. We should increase it only if it's not the item that we move the position. If task.id is not equal to the to update position 0.id, only the other items should increment. Okay, let's try again. That's fun. So let's do 2, 3, 4, 5. If I take 4, move it here. I think should be to string, and here to string. If it's not, then increment it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, but it's a bit more complicated. It's not that easy by simply incrementing it. 4 become 2, then the next one, 3, 4, but 5 we shouldn't. Oh boy, why are you using Expo? Because it's good. We should also take the previous const, previous position equal. Should I do here? Take the one at position 0, so we no longer have to do it like this. Then previous position is going to be to update dot position. So we update the position and we increment only we fetch the ones to increment where position is more of a new position and lower. Do we have end position is lower than the next parameter, which is previous position. So everything until that item should change places. Does it make any sense? So the fifth element should not change position when I'm moving 4 to this position. So now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, correct. And the items are also correct. Perfect. So if I do first, maybe this way is going to make a bit more sense. Third, fourth, fifth. How do you write fifth? I don't know. If we put fourth on the under the first, it goes first, fourth, second, third, fifth, with positions correct. Then if we take fourth and put it back in its position, somewhere here, in this situation, we are moving it below, so oh boy. Would it be easier just to, because we are incrementing it when we move a task above. If we move a task below, we should decrease it. To increment if position is more than the new position and it's less than the in the moved task. Let's change a bit the naming. I think the way as we get the to increment, we should do the to decrement. Is there a word like that? decrease or something like that. And in that situation, we're gonna take the tasks that are, if, for example, we're moving the second to a position below, in that case, the items in between, the third, that is named third and fourth, should decrease their position. So we find them by their position should be more than the old and less than the new. So position more than the, should be the other way around, 1 and 0, more than the old, or maybe I should change them here, and less than the new one. So to decrement, -1. Let's try again. A, B, C, D, E. So moving D below A works. Moving D back here, A, B, C, D, E, 1, 2, 3, 5, 5, 1, 2, 3. We incremented something that was not supposed to increment. No. We put the D in a position where it's not supposed. That's because, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we take D and put it here, I think these ones. We need to decrement if I'm gonna have to draw things because, yeah. So all of them have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we are taking this item, or maybe I should just, yeah, we're taking this item that is currently on position 4, and we want to move it here. That means that this item will receive index 2, index 2, this is the new position. Then all the items that have an index more or equal than the new position, so here we agreed that we have to increment if position is more or equal than the new position, and we need 2 and 3, and it's strictly less than the old position. 3 is strictly less than 4. So that one is clear. Now, if we are moving the item 2 below item 4, if we are moving it here, this is old position, this is new position. the new position should be equal to looks like we're going to do it like 5, because keeping the same logic is going to assign it 5. Keeping the same logic, because we new position seal. And that's the problem. But anyway, these two items, they should be decremented. So to decrement everything where position is more than the old position, more or equal. So more or equal to. That means that it will also take this item. Not a big problem, but we can simplify it by more than the previous one. And 4 is less, and it shouldn't be or equal, but we can try. A, B, C, D. 1, 2, 3, 1, A, B, C, D, E. So if I move D here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, D, B, C, E. And if I move it back in his position, A, B, C, D, E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Seems to be working. Move it here. Move it here. E, if I move it on top. Position 0. Why? I don't know. Because this math.seal will be... I can also do a math.minimum of, or no, math.maximum of 1 or this value. So this way, the minimum value is going to be 1. So if I take B and move it here, the B is 1, and I will remove E. If I take E and move it here, 1, 2. For some reason, we lost the third. A, B, C, D, E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5. 4, if I do it here. For some reason it goes to 6. Or would it be easier to just go for all of them and reassign their values? Not to handle like this, to increase, to decrease. Because the to increase, to decrease seems a bit... Yeah, but to increase, to decrease seems correct, like if you nail down the filtering, but it's a bit confusing and probably error prone. Let me leave it like this here, and let me try to think of an easier solution of fetching all the items, going through them, and reassigning their position based on the change. So we're gonna do realm.objects like this. Realm.objects task const all tasks equal Then we're gonna do realm.write. We're gonna start the transaction. Then let's go through all the tasks. It's going to be all tasks dot for each. And then we have task and index. Task and index. We still need to calculate the new position, so I'm gonna leave it here. We need to also do sorted on position to make sure that we take them sorted by position. Then if the all tasks is an array of items like this, let's do it like this. If task 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, let's go ahead and find that task in the array. But simple, like I need to find the task in an array. I know, new position. Okay, so task dot position is going to be equal to index. But if we are over the new position, if the index is more than new position, then task dot position is equal to index plus 1. And else if, no, this is actually going to be the first one. If task dot id dot toString equal to the item id dot toString, then this is the item that we want to change. So task dot position equal new position. Then if we are over that, we are simply adding 1, else is going to be this. Let's see if this is going to work better, because it looks easier, but maybe it's not going to work at all. So A, B, C, D, E, R. So if I do D under A, it's index, but position, yeah, index, new position, yeah. Index plus 2, and here index plus 1, because the position is starting from, for some reason we made the position to start from 1, not from 0, but that's okay. Let's go ahead, do one more time. A, B, C, D, E. D goes here. This check should be if index is more or equal than the new position. A, B, C, D, E. We take D, we put it here. Index plus 2 index. Why B was not updated? Because B is at index 0. If index plus 1 is more of a new position, A, B, C, D, E. Take this one, put it here, A, D, and B, C, E. Why the last one has the value 6? Where A, B, C, D, E? It's the same thing. Filter tasks. I'm gonna extract the item that I want to change position first. So if t.id.toString is equal to y dot, not y, but item id dot toString, I'm gonna take it out of the array. Filter, not filter, find and pop. How do you do it? I need to find and extract it. Is it pop, find, remove, find item and return? Find item and remove from array. Slice. I need to simply use ChatGPT. Let me give me just 1 second. My camera is stuck there, so having an array of items in JavaScript, I want to change the location of one of them. Like my brain is so foggy, like I cannot even write normally. Just give me some ideas. Don't actually need to swap them. Move item to a new position. Yes, yes, splice. Element. Element will be splice, and then we're gonna include it. Okay. Think that's what I need. So we have all tasks, splice from index. I don't know, from index is going to be const from index is going to be equal to all tasks dot find index of the item that has item.id.toString equal to item id dot underscore id dot to string. So we have an index when these all items are to, it's not a list. It's not a list to array. Realm objects to array. Slice array prototype splice all tasks. Start index is from index, then 1 at position 0. So that's the first one element. And then we do the same but with a splice. Splice to index is going to be new position, all items. New position. And then, no, it's to index. And then element. And will this return something? Const results. No idea what's happening there, but let's see. Going nuts. All tasks const all tasks array, then we're gonna take what ChatGPT did, all task array from index, then all task array slice to index element, all tasks here. Now, if I simply loop for this and simply assign index +1. That's it, nothing more. A, B, C, D goes back here. I'm already tired to test and understand if it works or not. Okay, A, B, C, D, E. If we take D, put it below A, it doesn't work because it's A, B, C. Because maybe new position -1, or let's do new position. Yeah, that's the position there. 0, and here not sill but floor. Because, okay, I can leave it like that because that's position, but here in Splice we're using index. So the index is always -1 compared to position, so kind of makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna get confused with all the alphabet here. C, D, E. D goes below A. D is below A, then B, C are 1, 2, 3, 4. Now D goes back at its position. A, B, C, D are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. R goes above everything. R, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. R goes below everything. A, B, C, D, R, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it works. There is a small bug. If I select it and release it, if I select it, not move a finger and release it, it remains blocked. That's because why? In the task drag area, we didn't activate it in touch move. So we need some kind of on finalize just to make sure that we are unselecting it. It was not moved, but at the same time we want to reset using run on GS. We want to set dragging task ID with null. We don't want to drop it because it was not moved. It was moved only when it called end because it's activating here. So that should fix this small bug of long pressing and releasing. Long press, release. Long press, release. There is also this small, yeah, let me go ahead and do, I think reordering kind of works. And it's even easier than my initial over-engineer stuff. I just take them as an array. Then I swap them in the array and I assign them a new position based on their position in an array. So it's much easier than this one. So let me go ahead and do git add. Reorder. Perfect. Yay, thank you very much, Fulbright. That was a struggle. That was a struggle. Not gonna lie. So is my camera still
What would you say
working?
to someone who...
No. Here I am. Let me double check. Yeah, it's still not working. But I wanted to fix a small bug. Which one? Oh yeah, when I click and hold, when I click one item, the item below kind of shift and move and jump for no reason. Why that happens? That happens because, well, let's go in the task list item. What happens there is something happens. And it's something related to the margin top, because the items okay, I understand. The margin top should be animated like with timing when we are moving through them, but when it's the initial time we do that, we don't want to animate it. We want to set it right away to 50 pixels, because the item that disappears instantly. So we want to also add the necessary spacing also instantly. But how we're gonna do that? How will we know if we're with timing it's above the first item? If this is the moment when it happened, I think we're gonna do that by adding some animation reactions. I believe so. So let's try to move a margin top into a const margin top into a shared value. Use shared value. What? Oh, it should be, yeah. Initially it's going to be 0. Now we are going, the margin top depends, will update based on a couple of things. One thing that it depends on is the drag Y position. So but we're gonna use a use animated reaction, which allows us to run a function based on changes on a shared value. So the first function should return a shared value, drag Y. Should it be drag Y or drag Y.value? I think drag Y.value. And the second one will receive this with this new drag Y. And what it will do, we need to update margin top.value depending on this. So we're gonna do something like in this style. I'm going to comment out the styles for now, and I'm gonna put them here in the animated reaction. Because instead of returning, we need to update the margin top similar to this. So if there is no drag Y, that means that margin top.value equal to 0. Then remove this one. Next one, then okay, index drag Y, not drag Y, but we're working with this new drag Y. Then instead of return margin top, we're gonna say margin top dot value is going to be equal to with timing towards that. Okay. And lastly, here margin top dot value equal, also not inside the return statement, with timing. And again, make sure to use this field that we received instead of drag y.value. Drag y.value. So now everything should be working as it was working before. The only thing is that we need to, in this animated style now, we are not doing any calculation. We can simply do margin top, or even we can assign it right away there because it's going to work. Margin top equal margin top. So let's reload and see if it's still working. And here as well, I think margin top. Cannot read properly. Value of undefined, that where? Oh, probably here like this, and here like this. So let's see. Yes, it's working as it was working before. If I drag it, it works. But whenever I click, what I want to do, this is another animated reaction. So let's define another animated reaction based on the dragging task ID. Because if it goes from null to something, so dot value new value. So if new value is defined, then we want to add margin top right away 50 to the items that are where? That are, it's above the first item, no. Something like this, but with timing, like instantly, and not drag y.value. No, what? Drag y.value, drag y.value. Oh, but that's the dragging task ID is not a shared value, so it's a normal use effect. It's not a use effect. It's a simple state variable that can be handled here, dragging task ID. If dragging task ID, or maybe we can copy paste here this code. If dragging task ID where did the styles disappear? So now if I do that, you see when I do it, the items don't jump. They stay there, so it's a much better experience. Because we right away increase it when we start dragging one item. Yeah, the only thing is that it jumps a little bit when we save it. Can I fix this one as well? I'm not sure. Because what happens there? The items can it be in else to jump top value equals 0 right away? Yeah, look at this. Yeah, I still don't really, I'm not a very big fan of the whole, when we drop it, because there is a little flicker there. But anyway, like it looks very, very smoothly now. And seems to work correctly. For a small split of a second, like it's not what I intended, because it needs to also update it. But it looks much better. So let's go ahead and do a git add, git commit -m, fix jumps, fix jumps. But even on Trello, like if you go, where is Trello? I don't know where. Here. Oh, it works good. But our is much more is way better, definitely. Oh, that was challenging, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. And I think I'm gonna stop here, git status. Unless maybe fixing like this bug, like when we create something. Let me reload just to get rid of it. Where is it? the polyfill. So let's try to install it by following the URL that it showed. But no, I'm too tired to fix these small error warnings. Our drag and drops are better. Yeah, definitely. I'm still like, let's see what happens, because I think there is still a lot of work to implement a really correct drag and drop. For example, when we have a lot of items here, my list completely goes off the screen. So I think what I should do in my task list for the container to say flex1, and now it's going to be scrollable. So what happens? Good question. If we scroll down and then take one of these items, as I expected, it's a bit below where we would expect it to be, because that's the amount of scroll that we have. So if I'm all the way up to the list, it works nice. If I scroll a bit and take this item, it's going to be displayed way below that we expect. So I think what you can do in that situation is you can take the where is it? Task list. You can take the scroll position of a flat list and offset, based on the scroll position, offset the value there. Because you see, like the actual dragging and dropping works, it's only like where we display it. So we need to offset it based on how much the flat list has been scrolled. Yeah. You can do this with a native event on the handle scroll. Console log event dot content. Think it content offset. Dot y. So when we scroll, we see how much we scrolled up and down. So we can take this one, and from the drag area, we can do const drag offset, use shared value 0. Drag offset y. Let's do it at the bottom. Let's export drag offset y from the provider. We can specify the type here at the top. It's also a shared value like the drag y. We can take this drag offset. We can go to the task list. We can import it from const use dragging context, and we're gonna get here the drag offset y. So let's assign, instead of console logging, let's assign the value of this shared value with the offset of a container. Then what we can do in the drag area, where we apply this drag y from the top, I think we should do minus, but I cannot do minus here. Oh, come on. I need a use style in that case, or I need a derived value. Translate y equal use derived value, where we are going to return drag y initially. Let's just do drag y. Translate y. If I put it here instead of, does it still work? Top translate y. Top translate y. What's happening there? Translate y. Use derived value. Did I miss the way to use derived value? It's a return value. Oh, drag y dot value. The drag y updates, but translate y is not. Okay, I can accomplish that with animated styles. So const animated style equal use animated style, which will apply this top and left. Return. But in this situation, I can do top. Translate, not translate y, but drag y dot value minus offset. I'll just double check if it still works by applying it here. Yeah, now it still works. So what I want to do is I want to offset it doing minus the offset. Minus drag offset y dot value. So if we are on the top, it's not going to have any offset. If we scroll here, it's going to have some offset. And it kind of works, but something happened there. I think what was the problem here in the task list item is where we check drag y dot value. think here we need to apply the same offset if it's above. Yeah. Where else are we using this 73? Yeah, I think we need to use it here as well. Drag offset Y. Oh, but it's going to be challenging. This is applying margin top. If there is no drag Y, okay. Then we take the item Y, which is the index multiplied by that minus drag offset dot value, right? It still has some weird spacing there. Item Y, it's plus 7, item Y, item Y, minus drag offset. Index equals 0, it's above the first item. Anyway, something is happening. Probably you can adjust it a bit to make it even better, even more perfect. And something that I recommend you do, like when we are here at the top, try to scroll the list up. When you're at the bottom, try to scroll the list down. This would be a bit more advanced, but it should be possible. So if I add here test, and I'm gonna try to move a test somewhere here. Where is it? 7. Yeah, don't pretty like it, but anyway, when it's not scrollable, it works perfectly fine. So let me do here git add, git commit minus m, scrollable list, and let's do git push origin main. All right, now that's definitely it. Oh, that was a challenging one. Had a lot of fun, learned a lot of things, practice more, working with Reanimated, with Gesture Handler, with shared values and so on. I'm pretty sure like if I'm gonna look back at this code like tomorrow, there is a lot of things that you can improve here. And I encourage you to, if you find like better solution, reach out to me, send it to me, post them on Twitter. I'll be happy to see how you would implement these kind of things. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, guys. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I know that you cannot see me. Something happened with my camera, but we're going to see each other next week with another tutorial. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, and see you later.